Now that I've actually had time to play the Risk of Rain 2 update, it's time to give my full thoughts. My last video, the new update is here, goes over the patch notes, but this is going to be my opinion after having hands-on gameplay. There's some good, there's some bad, and there's some in between. First off, the False Sun boss fight, which was the main focus of this entire patch. And you know what? Props to Gearbox, they did a phenomenal job with it. One of the issues with the False Sun pre-patch was how weird and jank the entire fight felt. He'd approach you, you'd take damage. His attacks were borderline unreadable at the time, and every time you died, it felt like the most BS death possible. The new False Sun has a lot of new VFX included, audio cues, and telegraphed animations. Now when the False Sun comes to attack you, you'll know when it's coming. There's fewer lightning strikes and golems in the fight, making it more about the False Sun. And now the laser attack, which was BS and unfun, comes from the statue instead of False Sun himself, which is a beautiful touch that I really didn't expect. My only gripe with the False Sun fight right now is that the laser itself still seems kind of oppressive. It's easy to tell when the laser attack is about to happen, and getting behind cover isn't the most difficult thing. The problem is that once the laser starts and gets locked onto you, even if you're behind a pillar, it's kind of hard to move around. Your cover is so small that moving to the left or right or even jumping is going to get you killed. Because yes, the laser still does a lot of damage. In games that aren't Risk of Rain 2, this might not be that big of a deal, but a Head Stomper's Wax Quail, or just having a decent amount of movement speed, could make hiding behind cover very difficult. I feel like the fat police officer hiding behind the pole. Now, most of the time when I've died because of the laser, it's because I saw the False Sun coming towards me and I panicked, thinking I was about to get smacked or something, and then the laser catches me off guard. So there's definitely a little bit of a skill issue there, but I still feel like the cover should be a little bit larger, but hey, that's what she said. Now for the bad of the patch that I didn't really enjoy. Void Fields. This wasn't in the dev diary itself, it was actually only in the patch notes, so they must be hiding their shame a little bit. But long story short, the changes to the Void Fields are time moves when you're not doing the cells, and when you're outside in the Void Fog, damage ramps up fairly quickly, so you can't stay there indefinitely. As I've already mentioned multiple times in my videos and streams, even though Void Fields is pretty strong, I personally never went there, and most people don't either. Case in point, most of you probably didn't know about this change. Now, I'm okay with most of the changes where you can't stay there indefinitely, but the Void Fog doing as much damage as it does is a little punishing. And by a little, I mean quite a lot. Trying to traverse the Void Fields with a low mobility survivor like Engineer, Captain, etc. is going to lead to your death pretty quickly. I'm actually not sure if it's possible to do the Void Fields as one of those survivors if you don't have enough movement speed items. And I'm talking multiple movement speed items like 5 goat hoofs, 5 energy drinks, etc. And you're also going to have to pair that with healing items as well, because you're going to do at least half of your HP as damage before you get to the next cell. When I was doing Void Fields just to test it out, and I decided to leave through the Void Portal as Mercenary, I nearly died, and I wasn't even that far from the Void Portal. I have no issue with Void Fields being a little bit more punishing, but dying because you decided not to lock in loader does not feel good. Now let's talk about the item changes, since they did decide to nerf a couple. Although surprisingly, there is a buff in here. I feel like all of the nerfs are warranted, and honestly, they weren't too bad. There are some that I would have done differently. For example, the Elusive Antler change, which removed the passive effect for Elusive Antlers, and now you can only gain the movement speed by picking up the orbs. I probably would have kept a little bit of movement speed on the first stack, and then any extra Elusive Antlers would not give you any passive bonus speed. And then Growth Nectar, I probably would have kept the same percentage, 7%, but that's just me. Where they are now is perfectly fine. Warped Echo getting buffed was a little bit odd. However, I'm not exactly mad about it. Basically, beforehand, Warped Echo didn't work with things like Planulant and Repulsion Armor. Each echoed hit would totally ignore those two items. However, now they totally work together. And not only that, but Tougher Times also works with Warped Echo, whereas it didn't before. This makes the item much stronger because there's so many different synergies that just got unlocked. And now items like Planulant and Repulsion Armor are a lot better. And now you even have to think about using Safer Spaces versus Tougher Times now. It's definitely a massive buff, but I'm not mad about it at all because it adds so many different synergies and buffs a lot of items that kind of needed it. Finally, we have some enemy changes. Much like the False Sun, the Halcyonite enemy was kind of wonky. The animations were bad, the hitboxes were bad. Its weird whirlwind attack would sometimes speed up times 1,000, and fighting it in general was just a confusing mess, just like the False Sun boss fight. However, again, just like the False Sun boss fight, this was updated. Now the whirlwind attack is almost entirely different. It spins around and tracks the player or whatever it's targeting, and can even fly now, so it's much harder to knock it off the edge. The hitbox on its attacks are way better. Now if I get hit by the Halcyonite, I actually feel like I deserve to get hit, and the laser attack actually tracks you now. Much like how the False Sun isn't necessarily easier now, everything just feels a lot fairer when it comes to this enemy. So if I die to it, I feel like I deserve it rather than being like, what the heck? Which, speaking of that, Scorch Worms also got a couple changes where their HP has been reduced, thank God. And now, if you stand over them when they're underground, they should come above ground more consistently. This was a big gripe of mine because it took forever to get them to come out of the ground. So thankfully this is fixed and this enemy isn't as bad anymore. All in all, this is a great update, and an unspoken thing that I haven't really mentioned yet is I really like how they treated the False Sun fight and made it so it's actually worth it to go to it, unlike the Voidling in Survivors of the Void. Now the False Sun fight is more like a hidden realm where you can optionally go there and potentially make your run better. Time is frozen and the stage doesn't increment after you beat the False Sun, meaning you can get all the items from the False Sun area and still go to stage 4, which is typically where you get a free legendary and a lot of uncommon items. The trade-off being that you could potentially die to the False Sun since he's no pushover anymore. So it's a neat way to make the False Sun something you actually want to go to, but you can avoid if you so choose. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that's been added to the patch, but since I've already covered that, you should go check out my patch notes video. Thanks for watching and good job, Gearbox.